My wife got a tattoo that read "Independent Girl" while systematically draining my heart and my wallet. So, I cut her off entirely and watched her life unravel, piece by painful piece. I'm a 41-year-old man, and for the past 15 years I've worked steadily as a civil engineer at the same reputable firm. I began fresh out of college, the typical wide-eyed graduate with a passion for building and problem-solving. Through grit, perseverance, and more than a few long nights, I rose through the ranks, from entry-level grunt to seasoned project manager. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it gave me a stable foundation. I wouldn't call myself wealthy, but I'm comfortable enough that my wife, Jenny, she's 38, never once had to stress over a late bill or worry about where the next mortgage payment was coming from. We first met in college, fell hard and fast, and within a year after tossing our graduation caps, we were exchanging vows under a warm summer sky. Not long after, we made the big move to Colorado and settled into a spacious 4-bedroom house nestled in a peaceful suburb just outside Denver. It was the kind of place where people waved good morning and lawn sprinklers clicked rhythmically at dusk. We tried for children in those early years, with hope and open hearts, but month after month, our dreams quietly slipped away, until one day we just stopped trying. It was painful, yes, but we accepted the reality. We leaned on each other, telling ourselves that our bond was enough, and for a long while, it truly felt like it was. From the outside, and even to me, we had a good life. Our weekends were often spent hiking trails that snaked through the Rockies, filling our lungs with crisp mountain air. We took modest but memorable vacations once or twice a year, and about every month, we'd host or attend dinners with a rotating cast of close friends. No lavish extravagance, just consistent, quiet contentment. Or so I thought. Until one night shattered that illusion. Jenny staggered in around 1:00 a.m., the kind of loud that's born of trying too hard to be quiet. Her heels clicked across the hardwood in an uneven rhythm, keys clattered deliberately onto the granite counter, and she bumped against the hallway table like a drunk actor missing her cue. I stayed perfectly still in bed, pretending to be fast asleep, but inside every muscle was tense, every sense on high alert. The moment she slid under the covers, the scent overwhelmed me. It wasn't just perfume, it was a luxurious, musky cologne, definitely not one I wore. Something earthy, masculine, and undeniably expensive. This wasn't the first time either. That was the 4th late night in the same month, each one brushed off with some half-hearted excuse. A networking mixer, girls' night out with co-workers like Sarah or Melissa from her marketing agency. I rolled to my side, facing away, erecting a wall of silence between us. I told myself I'd confront her the next day, but sleep never came. I just stared at the slow rotations of the ceiling fan, the shadows it cast swirling like dark thoughts in my mind. When morning arrived, the sun offered no clarity, just a dull light revealing a life unraveling. As I brewed coffee, I ran through possibilities like a checklist in my head. Was she having an affair? Wrestling with some delayed midlife crisis? Should I confront her without proof? Wait and observe? I'm a man of logic, trained to base conclusions on data and evidence. But marriage doesn't follow the rules of structural analysis or load-bearing formulas. It's a messy realm of feelings, one that defies prediction. Still, I needed something concrete before acting. While she was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I opened her purse. We'd always honored each other's privacy. This felt like crossing a line, but something told me the line had already been obliterated. Inside, I found a receipt from a high-end restaurant downtown. The total was $237.00 for 2 people, dated the previous night. We shared a joint credit card, but that charge hadn't shown up yet. Was she hiding financial transactions? My heart pounded as I placed the receipt back, but then I saw something else. A sleek black business card from a place called Inked Soul. On the back, an appointment was scribbled in ink, yesterday afternoon. Jenny had always expressed a fear of needles. I'd once joked about us getting matching tattoos, and she visibly cringed. So a tattoo? What was happening? She emerged from the bathroom wearing a revealing tank top I didn't recognize. That's when I saw it. A tattoo on her collarbone, cursive and bold, the words "Independent Girl" still red, the skin puffy and irritated. "What the hell is that?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended. She touched the ink like it was a precious artifact, smiling smugly. "You like it?" "Got it yesterday, Inked Soul downtown." "That's permanent," I said, pointing out the obvious. Her face hardened. "I don't need your permission, Dan. This is me now. I'm becoming who I am, an independent girl. I set my coffee down, working hard to keep calm. And who exactly were you before? Someone trapped in a boring routine, living a stable life we built together? She poured her coffee without flinching. I've been suffocating, living by your structure, your schedule, your safe little world. I'm nearly 40, Dan. I need to figure out who I am before time runs out. From there, everything nosedived. Our shared dreams, the quiet life we had nurtured, were now mocked as mundane. She called our suburban home a vanilla prison, and our retirement plan evidence of my supposed obsession with control. Controlling. The same man who quietly watched her siphon money from our accounts, hoping she'd come back to reality. I asked the obvious. Why didn't you say something before? Her answer? A cruel laugh. That's your problem. Everything has to be planned. Even a crisis has to fit your spreadsheet. I bit my tongue. And now, is this spontaneity, sneaking out, overspending, and lying? She grabbed her purse. I'm late for work. We'll talk later. But we didn't talk later. She made sure to come home after I was asleep, then vanished again before I woke. Days passed with barely a word exchanged. Weekends became silent standoffs, only interrupted by her disappearing acts, to hang out with so-called friends I'd never met. That Saturday, my friend Mike stopped by to catch the game. The moment he stepped into the living room, he looked me over. You look like crap, man. What's going on? I hesitated, but then with a sigh, I told him everything. The late nights, the sudden ink on her collarbone, the radical change in how she carried herself. All of it was starting to form a disturbing pattern. When I shared my concerns with Mike, he just nodded slowly, a somber look settling into his eyes. You know, he said, Rachel went through something similar last year. No cheating, thankfully, but the rest? It was almost textbook. New wardrobe, different priorities, mood swings. The whole, I'm turning 40 and haven't found myself meltdown. I think they call it the approaching 40 freakout. I sighed. I never thought Jenny would be that kind of person. She's always been steady, practical. Listen, Mike said, leaning in. My cousin dealt with something eerily similar. His wife started small, new friends, a yoga retreat, then a tattoo. Not long after, he found out she was hooking up with her CrossFit trainer. It escalated fast. I stared at my hands. You think Jenny's cheating? Mike didn't answer right away. He just looked at me with the kind of expression that said everything he wasn't saying aloud. I think you need to find out what's going on, before things get worse, before she drains your bank account dry. It was a warning I should have taken more seriously. It all began unraveling with a simple buzz on my phone, an alert from our bank. $2,780.00 had been withdrawn from our joint checking account. When I asked her about it, Jenny waved it off like it was a routine expense. I needed a wardrobe upgrade. New era, new look, she said breezily, sipping her coffee like we were talking about buying groceries. Don't you think we should have discussed a purchase that big first? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She rolled her eyes like I was some school teacher nagging about a forgotten assignment. Oh, I didn't know I needed your permission to buy clothes. It's not about permission, I replied, carefully choosing my words. It's about partnership, about respect. Wouldn't you be upset if I just walked out and dropped $3,000 without mentioning it? Ingrid spat, leaving a small trail of anger in his wake. She scoffed, a cruel smile tugging at her lips. You'd never do that. You're too scared to live. Her words hit harder than I expected, not because they were true, but because they were so outrageously unfair. I wasn't afraid to live. I was responsible. I sacrificed. I planned. I worked late nights so we could have options, a secure future. When did those traits become liabilities? A week later, she disappeared again, this time for the entire weekend. No warning, no explanations, just vanished. She returned Sunday evening with designer shopping bags from Saks and Nordstrom in tow, wearing a smug expression like a teenager who just got away with sneaking out. Another $1,950.00. Gone. Just like that. When I checked her credit card the following week, I nearly choked. The balance was at $8,400.00. Dangerously close to the $10,000.00 limit. And the purchases? High-end restaurants, rooftop lounges, luxury boutiques. No groceries. No shared expenses. Not a single cent on us. I confronted her again, trying to keep calm. Jenny, this is serious. You've almost maxed out the card. We need to talk. She sighed dramatically, literally rolling her eyes as though I were being unreasonable. Money comes and goes, Dan. We've been saving for some imaginary future for 15 years. I'm done living like that. I'm living now. And I'm paying for it, I shot back. Is that what you mean by living in the present? She stared at me, then smirked. Maybe you should try it sometime instead of being so boring. That night, as if all of this wasn't enough, she casually dropped another bombshell over dinner. She was going on a company leadership retreat. A retreat? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, Aspen. The company's renting a lodge for the weekend. I swallowed hard. Which weekend? Next, Thursday through Sunday. My stomach nodded. There've been a lot of these lately. Retreats, conferences, networking dinners. She snapped her head up. What, are you keeping tabs on me now? Jesus, Dan, this is exactly why I need space. That word again. Space. It had become her shield, her sword, and her get-out-of-jail-free card. Later that night, when she stepped into the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. I know, it's invasive, a breach of trust, but something inside me screamed that I had to know the truth, that I couldn't keep pretending. Her messages told me everything. These so-called girl nights weren't with Sarah or Melissa. They were with someone saved in her contacts as Ryan Fire. The texts made it clear. This wasn't a platonic relationship. He was her boss. The tone, the photos, the hotel confirmations. There was even a flirty message about how he couldn't wait for their Aspen weekend. Ah. He said his phone. My blood ran cold when I saw the hotel reservation. $2,680, 0 cents per night for 3 nights, charged to our joint credit card. A luxury resort suite. For 2. I returned her phone to the exact place I found it. The water stopped running a few minutes later, and I acted like nothing had happened. My heart was pounding, but my mind was calm for the first time in weeks. If she truly wanted to live as an independent girl, maybe it was time I gave her exactly that. Total independence from our marriage, our home, and our finances. But I didn't confront her that night. No, I needed time, to plan, to protect myself. Because this wasn't just an affair. This was betrayal in every possible sense. Emotional, physical, financial. That weekend, I started digging through our financial records, every statement, every transaction from the past 6 months. What I discovered made my stomach twist. She'd opened 3 new credit cards without telling me, maxed them out with cash advances and luxury spending, and she'd been making the minimum payments with money from our joint account, a quiet hemorrhage. The totals were staggering. Over $30,000, 0 cents in 6 months, on what I could only describe as her affair and her so-called rebirth. New clothes, jewelry, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, hotel rooms, so many hotel rooms. All of it paid for with money I'd spent years working to save. For us, for the future we once planned together. In the days that followed, I became a ghost in my own home, an invisible witness to a marriage in freefall. The woman who once cuddled up to me on lazy Sunday mornings now barely notices I am there. Our conversations became transactional, if they happened at all. She wore plunging dresses that showed off her tattoo, strutting like a stranger through rooms that used to hold memories. She started spending her weekends out in our once-furnished closet filled with high-end clothing that still had tags on them. One blouse had a $430, 0 cents price sticker. I got daily withdrawal alerts from our accounts. More damage was won while I sat silently gathering evidence. Her phone was always face down now. Her passwords changed weekly. Conversations stopped the moment I walked into the room. Her new friends, names I'd never heard before, suddenly became the center of her universe. Even our neighbors noticed. One afternoon, Steve from next door pulled me aside while I was checking the mail. Dan, I hope this isn't out of line, but I've seen a guy dropping Jenny off a few times when you're at work. White Range Rover. Thought you should know. I just nodded, the truth no longer a question. It was a confirmation. My stomach nodded as Steve's words settled in, but despite the tightness in my chest, I was grateful for his honesty. Thanks, Steve, I said quietly. I've had a bad feeling for a while. He nodded with empathy. I've been there. My ex pulled something similar a few years ago. If you ever need to talk, crash somewhere, or just get away, I'm one door over. His kindness caught me off guard. I hadn't realized how truly alone I'd felt these past few weeks, living with someone who used to be my best friend, but now barely acknowledged my presence. Steve's words were a rare moment of support in an increasingly isolating situation. That evening, a rare instance when we were both home at the same time, I decided to test the waters. We were sitting at the dinner table, silence hanging between us like thick smoke. She was scrolling on her phone, fingers flying with urgency. I watched her for a moment before asking casually, "So, who's Ryan? You've been texting him a lot." Her hands froze mid-segment. She blinked once, then composed herself quickly. "Just someone from work. Marketing brought him in as a new creative director." "Creative director? That's interesting," I replied. "You've never mentioned a new hire before." "We've been expanding," she said with a shrug. "New faces coming in all the time." I sipped my water slowly. Must pay well. Driving a white Range Rover and all. Her eyes widened, just for a second, before she masked it with feigned nonchalance. "I wouldn't know what he drives. We don't exactly talk about cars." Her voice was smooth, but the lie clung to the air like stale smoke. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. I just nodded and returned to my meal, pretending to believe her. Let her think she was getting away with it. That night, when she went to bed early, claiming she was tired from too many Zoom calls, I logged into our cell phone account. It wasn't something I'd ever done before, but at this point trust had already been annihilated. The call logs laid it all bare. 67 calls to the same number in less than a month, always during lunch breaks, late evenings, or during her commute. The text message count was even worse. Over 2,000 to the same contact. Thousands of interactions, far beyond anything professional. Then I checked her credit card records. Boutique hotels across Denver, booked during workdays. Charges from restaurants we'd never eaten at together. Spa packages, designer store receipts, and one from a 5-star resort tagged Professional Development Seminar. I kept digging. That's when I found the paperwork buried in her desk drawer. Documents showing she'd taken out a personal loan for $15,000. 0 cents. She used our house as collateral, without telling me, without even a conversation. This wasn't just infidelity, it was a betrayal of planning. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was dismantling our financial foundation while smiling in my face. The next day I called Mike. "Remember you mentioned your cousin's lawyer?" I asked. "You need his info?" "I need more than that. I think I need a damn chart." The next morning, while she sat across from me at breakfast, scrolling her phone and ignoring me as usual, I decided it was time. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my tone measured. "About what's going on." She barely looked up. "What about it?" "You're sleeping with Ryan." Still no flinch, no panic, just annoyance, as if I'd interrupted her scrolling time. "God, you're so dramatic," she muttered. "This is exactly why I needed something different. You smother me with your boring life and your control issues." My hands tightened around my coffee mug. "Control issues? I've given you full access to everything. Our accounts, our schedule. I've trusted you. And this is how you repay that? By using our home as collateral for a loan?" That finally got her attention. Her eyes snapped up. "You went through my things? That's private." "Oh, I see," I said, voice calm. "Privacy matters, unless we're talking about the joint bank account you treat like your personal slush fund." She stood up, indignant, brushing invisible dust from her designer blouse. "You've never understood what independence means. I'm finally becoming who I am, an independent woman. That doesn't fit into your little spreadsheets and scheduled dinners." "Independence," I said quietly, "doesn't mean betrayal. It doesn't mean lying and stealing from the person who's done nothing but support you." She slung a new Gucci bag, $1,200, 0 cents, still with the store tag attached, over her shoulder. "I don't have time for this conversation." "Brunch, on a Wednesday?" I asked. "I took a mental health day," she snapped. "Not that I need to explain myself to you anymore." She paused at the door. "Don't wait up, we're hitting a new club after." I sat at the table long after she left, staring into the cold remains of my breakfast. How had we gone from morning coffee and Sunday crosswords to this in just a few short months? That evening my phone buzzed, a text from Steve. "White Range Rover at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Thought you should know." Huh? I didn't need any more details. I already knew. Still, I sat in my car for an hour, debating what to do. Confront them? Follow them? Scream? Instead, I drove to the hotel and parked discreetly. In the valet area, I spotted the white Range Rover. Through the expansive lobby windows, I saw her, Jenny, laughing, draped on a bar stool next to a tall man in a designer suit, his slicked back hair gleaming under the light. His hand rested on her thigh, like it belonged there. I didn't make a scene. I raised my phone and took photos. Every touch, every laugh, every damning moment. Then I drove to a nearby cafe, opened my laptop, and searched for the top-rated divorce attorney in Denver. The next morning, I called Catherine Mills. Her reputation was fierce. Her consultation fee? $500, 0 cents for an hour. Worth every cent. After I laid everything out, she nodded coldly. Based on what you've told me, we have grounds for divorce, on adultery, financial deception, and possibly fraud. But we need to be smart. Meaning? Don't confront her again. Don't let her know you've hired me. Keep gathering evidence, but subtly. I'll start drafting the paperwork. You protect what's yours. She's already taken enough, I said. Catherine's lips curled into a steely smile. Then let's make sure she doesn't take anything else. The very next morning, Jenny dropped yet another surprise. I'm hosting a dinner party here tomorrow night, she said flatly, barely glancing up from her mimosa as I read the paper. I looked up. A dinner party. Since when do you cook or host dinner parties on the Sunday? I asked, raising an eyebrow as she nonchalantly sipped her coffee, avoiding my gaze. Oh, I'm not cooking, she replied with a flippant wave. Obviously, I hired a caterer, just some friends from my new social circle coming by for a casual evening. She stirred her cup slowly, still not meeting my eyes, her tone deliberately casual. You might want to make yourself scarce. You're not going to enjoy it. The audacity of the request took my breath away for a moment. You're asking me to leave my own house, so you can throw a party with people I've never even met? I asked quietly, stunned. She rolled her eyes with theatrical annoyance. This is what I mean when I say I need space. Everything with you is a debate, a negotiation. It's exhausting being married to someone so ordinary. Ordinary. That word hit harder than any insult she'd hurled before. After 12 years of marriage, after everything we'd built, I was now reduced in her eyes to something unremarkable. Forgettable. I calmly folded my newspaper. Fine, have your party, I said coolly. I'll be upstairs in my office. She blinked in surprise. The absence of a fight threw her off. She'd expected resistance, which only confirmed what I already suspected. This gathering wasn't as innocent as she wanted me to believe. By Sunday evening, I was ready. I sent Catherine a message. Plan in motion. She's hosting him and their new circle at the house tonight. I'll document everything. Catherine responded within seconds. Perfect. Don't engage. Get photos and video if you can, but absolutely no confrontation. Yet. At 7 p.m. sharp, the guests began to arrive. A steady parade of well-dressed strangers swept through the front door like a flood of perfume, laughter, and fake smiles. None of them looked familiar. Not a single face belonged to someone from our life together. I sat in my office upstairs, the bass from the music vibrating through the hardwood floor beneath my feet. I alternated between reviewing our financial records, making detailed notes, and texting Catherine to discuss the next legal steps. By midnight, the noise had become unbearable. I stepped out and moved quietly down the stairs, peering into the chaos that used to be our living room. The space had been transformed into something out of a downtown lounge. Our furniture was shoved unceremoniously to the walls. Empty champagne bottles glittered under the soft light. A catering crew stood awkwardly near the dining room, their eyes darting nervously around the room as the party spiraled out of control. And there she was. Jenny. Dressed in a backless silk gown that showed off her now infamous tattoo. She was laughing, practically glued to the side of a tall man I instantly recognized. Slick back hair, tailored designer suit, and the expensive watch he flaunted like a badge of honor. Ryan. He had one hand on her hip, the other holding a crystal flute of champagne as if he owned the place. She tossed her head back, laughing too loudly, too eagerly. I quietly recorded everything from the stairwell with my phone. I was about to retreat when someone bumped into a side table and sent a full glass of red wine cascading across our white couch, the one we had spent months saving for, arguing over fabric swatches, picking out together like a couple who still believed in shared choices. That was my limit. I strode into the room, cut the music from the Bluetooth speaker, and flipped on the overhead lights. Party's over, everyone out, I said clearly, calmly, but with a weight that cut through the remaining laughter. The room fell into stunned silence. A few partygoers glanced around nervously. Jenny stormed toward me, her cheeks flushed with fury. What the hell do you think you're doing? She snapped. Protecting what's left of this house, I replied, nodding toward the ruined sofa, the sticky champagne on the hardwood floor. Her guests awkwardly began gathering their things and drifting toward the door. Most avoided eye contact. Only Ryan lingered, standing behind her like some absurdly misplaced bodyguard. You should introduce us, I said to Jenny, my tone clipped but perfectly polite, since you and your creative director have gotten so acquainted. She crossed her arms. You're being ridiculous. You're embarrassing me in front of my friends. I raised an eyebrow. Embarrassing you? That's rich. Coming from someone who turned our home into a nightclub and spent the evening grinding on her boss in front of strangers. Ryan finally spoke. Look, man, this is between you two. I'll go. Smart decision, I said, not taking my eyes off Jenny. As he passed, I leaned in just slightly and whispered, By the way, Susan says hello. His steps faltered, just for a moment, but it was enough. He hadn't expected that. Susan, his wife, wasn't supposed to know, but I had done my homework. Jenny's eyes widened as Ryan left without a word. How dare you, she hissed. I told you to make yourself scarce tonight. This is my house too, I replied, and might I remind you, I pay 85% of the mortgage. I gestured to the room. Look at this place. The sofa alone will cost thousands to clean, if it's even salvageable. It's just a couch, Dan. God, you're so materialistic, so pathetic. I gave a humorless laugh. Materialistic? That's a bold accusation from someone who spent nearly $12,000, 0 cents, on designer clothes in 1 month, and used our house to take out a personal loan. She gasped. You're spying on me? I'm protecting everything I've built. Everything we were supposed to be building together. Or have you forgotten that we share finances? She turned on her heel, storming toward the stairs. But before she disappeared, she turned back to spit one last accusation. This is why I need independence from you. You track every penny. You're controlling, creepy. What's creepy, I said, stepping forward, is using your husband like an ATM while sleeping with your boss. That froze her. You don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. Sure I do, I replied. 4 nights last week at the Ritz, spa weekend in Vail. Venmo transfers from him to you labeled consulting. Want me to keep going? The blood drained from her face. You been following me? No need, I said evenly. Your statements and arrogance have told me everything I need to know. She snapped back into her default setting. Entitlement. Fine, yes. Ryan and I are together. He gets me. He's exciting, ambitious, everything you're not. Does his wife know? I asked. She paled. How did you? Because I do my research. Called his company. His wife, Susan, is listed as a co-owner. Lovely woman. Very polite. When I spoke with her yesterday. Seemed very interested in the photos I have. You what? Her voice cracked with panic. Our marriage has been over for months, she spat. You're just too emotionally clueless to see it. I stepped forward, voice low and deliberate. I've seen it all. The late nights, the disappearing money, the lies. And now I've made some decisions of my own. For the first time in weeks, fear flickered across her face. What does that mean? She asked. I smiled. It means the so-called independent girl is about to learn what independence really costs, and trust me, nothing about it is free. Not that tattoo. Not the hotel rooms booked under our joint credit card. Not the late-night texts exchanged with your married boss. And definitely not the betrayal of someone who once believed in you without question. That night, I didn't even try to sleep in our bed. Instead, I retreated to the guest room, closing the door on what used to be our life together. Through the walls, I could hear her pacing, making panicked phone calls well past midnight. Her voice was frantic, muffled, but unmistakably shaken. I lay in the dark, breathing slowly, letting the cold distance settle in. Before closing my eyes, I sent a brief message to Catherine. Confrontation happened. She admitted to the affair. The plan is still on for this weekend. Her response was immediate, crisp, and calculated. Perfect. Rest up. The real work begins Friday. When I woke the next morning, I checked our joint account out of habit, or maybe vigilance. Another $3,200, 0 cents had vanished, this time without so much as a text or note. But instead of the usual burn of anger, I felt something else entirely. Satisfaction. The withdrawal wasn't just a careless splurge. It was confirmation. All the pieces were falling into place. The weekly pattern was obvious now. Monday morning withdrawals. Random snippets of conversation I'd overheard while pretending to sleep or scrolling my phone. She and Ryan were planning something. A weekend trip. Cabo, most likely. She'd mentioned a leadership retreat weeks ago, vague and unprompted. It all added up. I called Coffer from the car during my commute. It's time, I said. She's leaving for the weekend. She'll be out of town for 72 hours. That's our window. Then we move, she said. Every detail needs to be executed precisely. No missteps. The next few days became my strategic prep phase. While Jenny packed sundresses, swimsuits, and high heels into her designer luggage, I orchestrated the most meticulous plan of my life, Operation Independence. It became my silent war cry. Every night after she fell asleep, I sat at my desk, methodically working through my checklist. I reviewed files, annotated statements, and scanned documents. Revenge wasn't the goal, reclamation was. I wasn't interested in destroying her. I just wanted to reclaim my life before she drained every last ounce of it. First, I visited Catherine's office downtown with a manila folder bursting at the seams. I handed her everything: 6 months of bank statements, screenshots of damning text messages, hotel invoices, and the loan documents tied to our home. She reviewed it all with surgical precision. "The infidelity is obvious," she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "And the financial misconduct? Substantial. This will not go well for her." "What's the next move?" I asked. Catherine looked at me over her glasses. "What do you want?" "Justice," I said simply. "I want to protect what I've earned. And I want her to experience the fear of true independence, the kind that comes without safety nets or joint accounts." Catherine gave a single approving nod. "You'll file for divorce under grounds of adultery and financial fraud. The evidence is bulletproof. Next, you'll secure your assets." She leaned in. "Once we begin, there's no turning back. Are you ready for that?" I've never been more sure of anything. My next stop was the bank, where I sat down with a financial advisor named Marcus. We combed through every financial contribution I'd made over the past 15 years. Salary deposits, bonus checks, investment growth, and the stark contrast of her reckless withdrawals. We outlined exactly what portion of the savings was mine and what she had spent. "I'll move my share into a new account Friday morning," I explained. "No more, no less." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Most people in your position drain the account entirely." "I'm not most people," I said. "This needs to be legal, clean, precise." Next, I met with a real estate agent to finalize paperwork on a furnished condo downtown. It was sleek, minimalist, and quiet. Everything our house had ceased to be. I paid the deposit from my personal funds and scheduled movers to collect only my essentials: clothes, books, and documents. Nothing more. Then came the most delicate step: a meeting with Susan, Ryan's wife. We sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. I laid it all out: the texts, the photos, the receipts. Susan didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly. "I've suspected for months," she said. "He's done this before. But this time? He's not taking half my company with him." Together, we crafted a parallel plan. Her attorney would file on Monday, the same day I would. A perfectly synchronized strike. Meanwhile, Jenny floated through the week blissfully unaware, wrapped in the haze of her affair and the excitement of her secret trip. If she noticed that I'd stopped questioning her late nights or credit card bills, she didn't show it. My silence must have felt like surrender. Thursday night, as she packed in our bedroom, I quietly finalized my checklist downstairs. Filed, and held with the court, ready for service Monday. 2. New condo lease signed, keys in hand. 3. Movers are scheduled for Saturday morning. 4. Locksmith appointment booked for Saturday afternoon. 5. Utilities were transferred entirely to her name, with deposits required up front. 6. Restraining order, prepped, citing erratic behavior and supported by statements from Steve and 2 other neighbors. 7. Exact portion of joint savings calculated, down to the cent, to reflect her unauthorized spending. 8. Credit card companies were notified to freeze joint cards and remove my name from the liabilities. That night, she slipped into bed reeking of another man's cologne and expensive perfume. I feigned sleep as she dropped her phone on the nightstand. Once her breathing steadied, I sat up and checked her messages one final time. Confirmation. Cabo, hotel reservation locked in at $790.00 a night, 3 nights. Beachfront suite, paid with our joint card. Friday morning arrived, and I welcomed her to a breakfast spread she hadn't seen in months. Eggs Benedict, fresh juice, coffee with just the right amount of cream. She eyed me curiously. "You seem cheerful." I smiled. "Just looking forward to a peaceful weekend. Some space might do us both good." She hesitated, eyes narrowing slightly. "Well, the retreat's going to be super boring, long meetings and such." "Sounds riveting," I said, helping her carry her suitcase out. "Drive safe. Let me know when you land." She gave a dismissive wave and pulled away. I stood in the driveway and watched her turn the corner. Then, without a moment's pause, I pulled out my phone and made the first call of the day. "She's gone," I said. "Let's begin." The weekend ahead wouldn't be about rage or destruction. It would be a systematic reclamation of my space, my identity, and my future, and every step of it would unfold with military precision. By midday Friday, everything was aligned like clockwork. I logged into the bank and transferred exactly 50% of our joint savings, minus the $28,000 in unauthorized spending she'd racked up, into my newly established individual account. Every dollar was accounted for, every deduction documented with supporting statements and notes. I left her rightful portion untouched, but immediately froze the entire account from further withdrawals. She wouldn't be draining another cent without my consent. Next, I contacted all the credit card companies. I removed myself as an authorized user from every joint account. Where I was the primary holder, I closed the accounts entirely. It was no longer a shared financial life. I had drawn the line. From that moment forward, my name would not be tied to her reckless choices. Then came the tedious but necessary wave of emails and phone calls. I updated contact details and payment methods for every shared utility, insurance plan, and subscription service. Electric, water, internet, streaming platforms, and phone bills. Any account that had previously been ours was now split. I assumed full control over my half and removed her from mine. I also updated my life insurance policy, removing her as the beneficiary and assigning that position to my sister. I hadn't even told my sister yet, but I knew she'd understand. Finally, I placed a fraud alert on my Social Security number with all 3 credit bureaus. I wasn't taking any more chances, not with someone who had proven so capable of deception. None of these actions was about revenge. They weren't about punishing her. What I felt was far from vindictive. It was something purer. The quiet, satisfying click of control sliding back into my hands. Each phone call, every form signed, and confirmation email received was another symbolic cut in the cord binding me to her chaos. Saturday morning arrived sharp and clear, just like everything else in my life now. At 8:00 a.m. the moving truck pulled up. I greeted the team, showed them my labeled boxes and pre-packed furniture. I'd taken only what was undeniably mine: clothes, electronics, personal files, and family heirlooms from before the marriage. Nothing that could be contested. I documented the process with time-stamped photos and video, just in case. By the time the movers were done, the locksmith arrived. I handed him the new keys, watched as he changed every lock in the house, and finally, I sat down at the kitchen table to write a letter. In it, I explained calmly where she could retrieve her new set of keys. From Catherine's office, where she would also be handed the divorce papers. No drama, no fight, just legal precision and accountability. Sunday, I moved into my new condo. I spent the day unpacking essentials, setting up the internet, and creating a home from the quiet space I now had entirely to myself. That evening, I made a few strategic phone calls to companies I'd had on my radar, competitors in the industry who knew my reputation. After 15 years at my firm, I was finally open to new possibilities. A fresh start, both personally and professionally. Monday morning arrived like a quiet storm. The final phase of the plan unfolded exactly as intended. Susan filed for divorce from Ryan, effectively freezing their shared business assets. At the same time, she submitted documentation to their board of directors. Ryan had billed personal hotel stays, many of them with Jenny, to their company account. The financial trail was irrefutable, and not because the business was in dire financial straits, as Jenny had clued them all up before the financial season. Around 7:00 p.m., my phone started buzzing nonstop. I could picture it perfectly. Jenny returning home, struggling with the new locks, trying to call her mom, and eventually being pointed toward Catherine's office. It would have been there, sitting in that sterile law office when everything crashed down around her. The voicemails came in rapid succession. "What the hell, Dan? Call me right now. You changed the locks? Are you insane? I can't access our accounts. Where's our money? My credit cards are frozen. I just tried to buy gas and my card got declined. The electric company wants a $500 0-cent deposit. My insurance lapsed, and I got pulled over. Brian's backing away. His wife knows. What did you do? HR just called me in. They want to talk about my conduct. Dan. Please, call me. Please." I listened to every message and responded to none. Instead, I sent a single text to Catherine. "She's making contact. Proceed as planned." 2 days passed before I answered one of her calls. When I finally picked up, her voice was almost unrecognizable. Raw, ragged from crying, the smooth edge of her arrogance completely gone. "Dan, please, I made a terrible mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm sorry, so sorry." "You were chasing freedom, remember?" I replied calmly. "Now you've got it. Please. I've been fired. Ryan's wife is suing him. The cards are maxed out. I can't make the mortgage payment this month. Sounds like grown-up problems, I said. Best of luck navigating those. Independent living isn't as easy as you thought, is it? I need help, she whispered. I have nowhere to go. You still have the house, for now, I said. At least until the bank forecloses because of that loan you took out behind my back. Should buy you a couple of months, give or take. Can we just talk? She begged. I'll do anything to fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said flatly. The paperwork lays everything out. You're calculating my worth? That's what our marriage meant to you? No, but I did calculate your contributions versus your spending. They came out to roughly negative $42,000. 0 cents. But I'm generous. I'm waiving that debt. Dan, I love you. This was all just a mistake. No, Jenny, the mistake was mine, believing you were my partner when you were just looking for a sponsor. Enjoy the independence. I hear Starbucks is hiring. I ended the call and blocked her number. A week later, her sister Mariah called, clearly upset. She's a wreck, Dan, sleeping on my couch. She hasn't stopped crying in days. Ryan left her, she's broke, she sold everything. Bags, shoes, designer clothes, for pennies. Her credit is ruined. He and his party alighted. I said nothing. She's waitressing now, working 2 jobs. Can't you just talk to her? I did, for 12 years. She wasn't interested in listening. Now neither am I. She made a mistake, Mariah argued. No. A mistake is forgetting a birthday or a dinner reservation. What Jenny did was make thousands of conscious decisions to lie, manipulate, and drain the life out of the person who stood by her through everything. That's not a mistake. That's her character. She's lost everything, Mariah said softly. Her job, her home. Then maybe she's finally learning what independence really feels like, I replied. I'm not her safety net anymore. You're heartless. No, I said firmly. I've just finally learned to value myself. Maybe she will too. 6 months passed. The divorce was finalized faster than I had expected, largely thanks to Catherine's relentless precision and the overwhelming pile of evidence we had built. Jenny didn't contest anything after her initial attempts at reconciliation failed. I think she just wanted the process to be over. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard fragments about her new life. She'd moved back in with her parents at 38. She worked days as a waitress, nights as a bartender. The house had gone into foreclosure, thanks to the loan she took out in secret. Her credit was in ruins. Everything she had tried to build on the ashes of our marriage had crumbled. And me? I was free. Ryan had vanished the moment the consequences caught up to him. When his wife filed for divorce and locked him out of their shared business, he went completely silent. No calls, no messages, not even an apology to Jenny. Just a ghost, vanishing into the fog of his own undoing. The independent girl tattoo she'd once flaunted like a badge of freedom had become a cruel, mocking scar. Word had it she'd tried to get it removed, but the laser treatments were too expensive for her now. The irony, in its purest form. As for me, I was thriving. I had accepted a position at a rival engineering firm that had been courting me for years. The pay bump was generous, 30% more than my previous salary, and the culture was refreshingly forward-thinking. The new job gave me not only financial breathing room, but also a sense of recognition I hadn't realized I'd been missing. My condo downtown offered breathtaking views of the Rocky Mountains. Each sunrise cast golden hues over the peaks, and every evening the city lights sparkled beneath my balcony. I had taken up rock climbing, something I'd always wanted to try, but never felt allowed to pursue, and joined a local hiking group. It wasn't long before I built a new circle of friends, people who didn't know me as part of a couple, but simply as Dan. For the first time in years, I felt fully and completely free. About 8 months after everything imploded, I stopped by a quiet cafe on a Saturday morning. I'd just wrapped up an early climbing session and was looking forward to a peaceful hour with a good book and better coffee. I was scanning the pastry case when I heard someone behind me softly call my name. I turned. There stood Jenny, wearing a plain black waitress uniform, modest slacks, flat shoes, and a collared shirt. Her once perfect hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, her face bare except for faint traces of mascara. The designer accessories, the manicured nails, the high-end confidence, they were all gone. All that remained was the faint outline of the tattoo on her collarbone. Dan, she said quietly, almost uncertain. I didn't expect to see you here. Jenny, I replied, nodding politely. How have you been? She gave a strained chuckle. Do you really want to know? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to walk away without a word, But another part, perhaps the part that still remembered lazy Sunday mornings and late-night talks, was curious. This woman had once been my partner, my best friend, even if that version of her had disappeared long ago. "I've got a few minutes," I said, gesturing to an empty table. We sat, the silence stretching awkwardly for a moment. She stared at her hands while I took a slow sip of coffee, trying to reconcile the person in front of me with the one who'd once shared my life. "I'm sorry," she said at last, "for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am. Truly." I nodded. "What happened, Jenny? Not the midlife crisis version, the real one. What was going through your head?" She looked into her coffee as if it could offer answers. I wish I could explain it in a way that made sense. I was terrified of turning 40. I felt invisible. Then Ryan started paying attention at work, complimenting me, making me feel noticed, desired. Her voice dropped. He talked about this incredible life we could build together. How we'd start a business, travel, never worry about money. He made it sound magical. I got caught up in it. I thought I had to become the woman he wanted. Chic, spontaneous, luxurious. That's why I took the loan. Why I started spending. He had expensive tastes and I didn't want to lose him. She shook her head. He kept saying he'd leave Susan, that we were building something together. But the whole time, I was building a fantasy. I was stupid, she added bitterly. Yes, I agreed gently, you were. But that's not why I walked away. I left because of how you treated me. You didn't just lie, you demeaned me. You mocked the life we built. You called me boring, ordinary. Tears brimmed in her eyes. I know. I told myself those things to justify it all. If I painted you as the bad guy, it made me feel like I deserved to be happy, like I wasn't betraying something real. We sat in silence again. The din of the cafe carried around us, clinking cups, low conversations, laughter. All so normal, so far removed from the chaos we once shared. "How are your parents?" I asked finally. "They're disappointed but kind. I'm staying with them for now, saving up for my own apartment. I should have enough for a deposit in a few months." "And the tattoo?" She instinctively touched her collarbone. Permanent reminder of the dumbest decision of my life. I want to have it removed, but it's not cheap. I'm working on it. I stood, gathering my things. "I've got a climbing session in 20 minutes. "Climbing," she blinked. "You?" "Turns out I'm not as boring as you thought," I said with a small smile. She watched me take a few steps, then called after me. "Damn, do you think you could ever forgive me?" I paused. Her voice was so fragile, so unlike the woman I had known, or maybe exactly, like the person she'd always been, hidden beneath the arrogance and ambition. "I already have," I said, "but forgiveness doesn't mean we go back. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired." She nodded slowly, wiping a tear away. "Thank you for talking to me." I walked into the bright Colorado sunlight, feeling lighter. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just free. That long, burning anger that once fueled my every step had evaporated, replaced by something far more powerful: indifference. Jenny no longer held any sway over my life, no longer dictated my mood or my decisions. She was simply someone I used to know. As I crossed the street, my phone buzzed. A text from Lisa, someone I'd met through the hiking group. We'd been seeing each other casually, enjoying the simplicity and honesty of it all. "Still on for the trail tomorrow? The weather looks amazing." I smiled and texted back, "Absolutely. Can't wait." As I drove home, my thoughts drifted to Jenny's tattoo. Independent girl. She had wanted to reinvent herself through a man, through borrowed luxury, through illusion. She'd searched for independence in all the wrong places and lost everything. I, on the other hand, had found something real. By valuing myself, by rebuilding my life from the ground up, by surrounding myself with people who respected and uplifted me, I had found genuine independence. Not the kind inked onto skin in a moment of rebellion. The kind you earned. She wanted independence. And now she had it, fully, completely, tragically, alone. And me. I had it too. But mine came with peace, purpose, and the power of self-worth.